Joining us via Zoom from New Zealand this time is Jon Huxley, who's a partner and a part of the team, the fabulous team at Beaton. How are you, Jon? Welcome to the program.
Thank you, George. I'm very well indeed. Thank you very much for having me.
I want to touch on a subject that has impacted on so many people and so many businesses. How has COVID impacted the professional services groups and companies in New Zealand, and from your understanding also in Australia? Well,
interestingly, I guess the summary comment would be the sky didn't fall in. The forecasts that were somewhat doom and gloom in February, March, April didn't quite eventuate. There's two answers to the question, though. I guess one is, how are professional services firms faring in these challenging times, and how are their clients faring in these challenging times?
Yes.
The answer to the first question, as I've just touched on, really, is by and large, anecdotally, I admit, most of the professional services firms I am talking to, interacting with, have never been busier. Whether that be a legal firm, an accounting practice, an engineering firm, there is plenty to go around. However, the recent research that Beaton has just published around the impact of clients of professional services firms tells a slightly different story, and maybe an unsurprising one, in that over 70% of clients of professional services firms are citing a negative impact or worse.
So why did the disparity between the anecdotal advice or information and what you're getting in this research that Beaton has done? Why is there such a gap?
Well, I guess you have to consider the environment that a professional services firm operates in. Take a consulting engineering firm at the moment, there is a lot of work to do. Both in Australia and New Zealand, infrastructure spend is going up, and we all understand the reasons why that is. Governments are whether it's to fix tired and outdated infrastructure that exists in New Zealand, and at the same time the double whammy is job creation, of course. They are keen to spend money and spend it as fast as possible. So an engineering firm who is getting their share of action, it has never been busier. A legal services practitioner who's specializing in property advice or any kind of people advice or any kind of contractual advice, and of course the tide that is probably about to hit us around insolvency,
yes.
Definitely lends itself to a lot of work. And I think in challenging times, if we look at accounting practices, in challenging times, clients of accounting practices look to their accountant for advice, for best practice, for what do I do?
In between all that, I get a sense too that maybe some of the firms that have really been doing well have been the ones that have been more agile than some of the others, and have been able to make the little subtle shifts and offer maybe a different perspective to their clientele. Maybe if you make them more inclusive and keep them and bring them into the picture more, you get a better response. I know my wife, for example, who's a headhunter and a professional at the top end, she is meticulous in letting her clients know just where she sits with every step of the journey. And they appreciate it. Do you understand that? Is that reasonable?
Look, absolutely. The work that I did a lot of long before anybody knew what COVID was all about was the term I coined is the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of doing business? Doing business and managing client relationships. And for me, there are a number of fundamentals. Let me not try and list them all, but some of those, maybe what you just call hygiene factors of doing business, became even more important in COVID. And our research confirms that what does a client of a professional services firm want even more of in these challenging times? They want responsiveness, they want reliability, they want a firm that is easy to do business with, of course, offering the expertise to help them with whatever challenges or problems they have. But our survey tells us across all clients of professional services, the fundamentals have become even more important than they were pre-COVID.
Yeah, I would have suggested that was the case from the people around us and some of the businesses that we're involved in. That has reared and appeared, and you can see it. And I've heard from directors and others say to me, those firms or those partnerships where we are meticulously in step with, we're getting great responses back. So
yes.
Very much on what you were saying.
And look, and that's a wonderful thing from my perspective as a consultant and advisor to professional services firms, that it's jolly unfortunate that we have to have a pandemic to remind ourselves of why doing business is so important. But for organizations to realize that actually they can differentiate the experience they offer their clients just by being really good at what they do and not just relying on the quality of the professional advice, that the hygiene factors of doing business, if you can differentiate yourself from doing that from your competitors, then that's an exciting world, in my opinion.
What are the new activities that clients are seeking or want from their chosen firm in order to get this better business partnership going?
Well, one statement that springs to mind, whenever we do a piece of research in Beaton, I always like to pore over the verbatim comments that various respondents give. And one in particular comment along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing here, was, we are already very stressed, so please don't make us even more stressed. And the sort of the positive spin you would put onto that statement is, we are already very stressed, so what can you do to make our lives a little bit easier, and not just necessarily solve the immediate accounting problem that's in front of us, but how can you interact with us in a way that is not so cookie cutter, that is actually tailored to us, our needs, our challenges, and how can you manage our relationships such that we always know where we are, always understand what's coming, no surprises, no stresses, no anxieties, that the experience is consistent and it's consistently positive.
Do you know what I'm getting a sense of? I'm getting a sense of, John, that those companies that are good business companies, when times are very easy and everyone seems to be sailing along, there is a gap, but it's not that sizable. When things get tough, the very best players, the very best operatives, the very best business practices raise you and create that difference. Yes or no?
And we saw a lot of that immediately when COVID hit, that the really savvy organizations, and there were many, immediately got out of their virtual offices and made contact with clients, listened, asked what can we do to help? How can we add value to your world? And put together very hastily various activities, various ways of adding value free of charge. Wonderful things to do, wonderful habits to keep. You know, even when we've all had a vaccination in 3 weeks, 3 years, whenever wonderful habits to keep, to be constantly thinking, how am I being client-centric? How am I adding value? How am I building trust in my relationships? And not always charging for it, because that's how we build long-term relationships.
Yeah, very, very sound advice. Jon Huxley, once again, thank you for giving us an insight. This survey must have been illuminating on so many levels, but what a refresher that it brought us back to those very basic standards that should be the framework and the architecture for each and every successful business, yes?
Yeah, indeed. And look, the final comment I would make that was particularly enlightening from my perspective is the importance of price. If you'd asked most professional services firms during COVID, how important is price to your clients? I suspect all of them would have said they are all price sensitive. It's gone bananas. We're all being asked for discounts. Yes, there was lots of evidence of that, but our survey revealed the importance of price has actually gone down. As a driver of consideration, and what that means in plain English, would I consider firm A over firm B? A driver of those considerations are the fundamentals that we've just talked about, and price is quite a way down that list and falling.
Wow, that tells you a lot. Jon Huxley, We wish you a terrific Christmas. We wish everyone in New Zealand a much better 21. But thank you very much for giving us some very important insight and a reminder of just what it means to be good business people.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me, George.
Thank you, John. All the very best. Jon Huxley joining us on The Informer.